Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome on over to SpeedGaming for yet another Link to the Past Randomizer seed. This is week 4. This is Spoiler Log Key Sanity with a pilot behind both of the runners you see on screen. By the way, we're joined here in the booth by Esmar. How are we doing this evening?
Doing pretty good. I'm actually excited for this. This is the first spoiler keys race I've commentated. So that means that out of the 3 players on each team, 2 of them are going to be participating tonight. We have Jet082 versus P-Train, and piloted by Megawatt and Sabotender, respectively. Now, what this means is that each racer has a pilot who gets full access to the list of all locations and what items are hidden there. So they're not so hidden anymore, and it's up to them to find the optimal route through the seed. And it's very interesting because you have to strike a balance between, the best possible route and, safety, because some routes are more demanding than others.
It's going to show us a lot of a low percentage, I guess you could say, plays left and right, just because both the runners are basically going to be making the A to B to C to Triforce line throughout the entire seed, the lowest amount of checks that they possibly can get.
And it looks like we're getting right into it. So I see Jet opens up the 20 rupees in the Sanctuary, possibly to give their pilot a little bit of time to look over the seed, find the important locations.
Train already going for a fake flipper here. It's another fun thing that you usually see during these good old-fashioned pilot seeds. You see a little bit of different openings from some runners than you would in a normal, say, open 7 of 7, or even a normal Key Sanity seed.
Yeah, for sure. When you know where important items are, it becomes much less important to go for those high-density locations. Doesn't really matter how dense things are, as long as you know where to get what you need. It looks like we're probably going to be seeing something important on King Zora, since we do have some early rupee collection from the bush crabs and the hula hand that P-Train is doing right now.
Also be kind of along those lines, since the pilots do get these spoiler logs at the same time that our runners basically hit the go button. You can also say that doing the hula hand glitch just kind of gives their pilot a little bit extra time just to kind of comb through there and lay out their path for them as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the biggest things about being a pilot versus being a runner is there's a lot of skill that goes into being able to read a seed and quickly figure out what the best path to go is, because you don't have to figure out the whole thing right away, but you got to get started as soon as you can.
Speaking of getting started soon, it looks like a Jet is already heading over to the Eastern Palace area. Picked up some bombs from the Kakariko, Lake Hylia shop on the way. I would imagine we're going to be seeing something in the back of the Sahasrala's hut here.
Yeah, so in my mind, the important things to find out are, what are the goals that we're looking for here. One thing that's kind of nice to take a glance at is what item is on the Master Sword pedestal. There we find the gloves in the hut there, along with 20 rupees and a piece of heart. But it's nice to know in advance before you get started on your dungeon routing if you need to open the Master Sword pedestal, because most of the time you don't. Every so often you do, and it's nice to know that.
Yeah, it's always nice kind of early on to know whether or not you're, okay, are we banking for an Agassi? Is that what we're working for? Or where is our Dark World access? Or do we need the pendants? Is this going to be a ped seed? That's a lot of the early stuff that you'll see the pilots kind of combing through right away while the runners do some of the early things like P-Train did with the hula hand. Just giving your pilot that little extra time.
For sure, and the sanity also adds another wrinkle to that. For example, you can imagine, you need the Swamp Small Key to progress into Swamp Palace. If that's on pedestal, you need to pick that up, unless Swamp Palace is a pendant dungeon, in which case, well, I guess that doesn't really happen without a beatable seed logic, but there's a lot of wrinkles that can come into what you may or may not need to pick up.
Speaking of Swamp Palace, Smolky, I guess what P-Train just picked up.
Yeah, and looking at our trackers here, looks like we have the Tower of Hera, Palace of Darkness, and Thieves Town as our pendant dungeons.
Early hammer there in Eastern Palace. That's kind of a very interesting spot for that, mostly. I know if it was a normal seed, a lot of people like staying away from the Eastern Palace area without a bow, but there's the other wrinkle as well, like you said. It is key sanity. You got to think of it in matters of how many checks are in this dungeon, not how many items are in the dungeon.
Yeah, and Eastern Palace in that scenario is a good one for that, because there aren't any keys in chests in that dungeon, so you don't have any of the dungeon locked away behind keys that you may or may not have found yet. Moldorm's given P-Train a little trouble there with the bombs, decides to just take the hit.
There's something kind of funny about that item placement there. The far left being the mushroom, the far right being the powder.
Yeah, and I have to assume that they've already looked at what the mushroom turn-in is. Otherwise, there's no real reason to pick up the mushroom. You could maybe fake powder, but you've got the real powder right there. And yeah, we see Jet not picking it up. So perhaps the mushroom item isn't a critical. I would imagine it's not critical.
I think the big item,
something like 300 rupees, maybe.
Yeah, I think the big pickup there was just the powder, since of course the powder wasn't locked away behind 5 different things. It was essentially just right there. May as well go ahead and grab it while you can.
Especially in a seed where you're trying to avoid checks, having that powder for that extra bit of safety can really help in a lot of low percent situations.
Most definitely. Don't be surprised if we get to the Ganon Tower climb and have both of our runners sitting around 7-8 hearts area. No more.
Now, I'm not completely familiar with, how spoiler races play out. Is this play of getting the Swamp Small key in Agina's Cave? Or no, I guess that's not the Swamp Small. Excuse me, that's the Moon Pearl. So disregard everything I was just saying. I must have misseen when we called out that Swamp Small earlier. But Moon Pearl is a pretty good pickup, especially with the hammer and glove.
That would be Dark World access over on Jet's side. Bringing back that Swamp Small key. That was the back of the Kakariko well, actually.
Ah, I see. So, I imagine we see Jet going over to the Village of Outcasts. That would tell me that there's something that's very good somewhere in this area, whether in the Light World or Dark World. Perhaps on the Magic Bat, since that powder was grabbed.
That is indeed where we're heading. What is the Magic Bat hanging on to us today?
It's a very interesting reversal. Usually the commentators know more than the runners do, but it's exactly the opposite.
I feel like it adds a little more mystery. It's like, well, our runners have all the information essentially behind them telling them where to go. We're just kind of like, ooh, what are we going to find? We know there's something here. It's the hook shot. Ooh, boy.
Yeah, that's a great item to pick up early. In a regular seed, getting a lot of world exploration items that give you access to parts of the world, like the hookshot, the mitts, that can sometimes make the logic fuzzy and hard to read. When you've got a spoiler log, that's not really an issue. You want to get those as soon as possible. Hookshot speeds up your movement. I imagine boots aren't early, since we haven't seen anybody go out of their way to get those yet. But you want to get those as early as possible. Anything to save you a little bit of time here.
One can kind of only add to that wondering, is the front of Escape completely empty, since it looks like Jet is already heading to the Dark World?
And you have to imagine running this seed without the spoiler log would be already pretty unpleasant. You've got Hammer You have the powder for free, but the hammer's in Eastern, and you got to go and turn it into Magic Bat to get the Moon Pearl, or no, the Agina Moon Pearl, the Magic Bat for the hook shot. It's a lot of stuff that you oftentimes will sometimes bank on not being your hard progression, but it's kind of nice to have this in the spoiler. Skull Woods is another dungeon where in Key Sanity, the value just goes way up because all of those chests that usually contain those useless small keys now contain other things. So there's even in a spoiler log, there's a fairly decent chance that something you're gonna want to have is in here.
Yep, Skullwoods is one of those that makes the jump from 2 items to we have 8 checks in here. The other big one, of course, is everybody's favorite, Palace of Darkness, going from the 6 items to, I believe it's 14 checks.
Yeah, Palace of Darkness is a little in a little different of a spot just because of how many of those are locked behind small keys. Jet takes a death to the Gibdo there. And it's costly, but it's not the biggest deal in the world because you're right there. It's time you don't want to lose.
Definitely not fun, but understandable. 4 hearts trying to dance around those Gibdo. We got another one here just not playing nice at all, just standing in front of the door like, hey, you want to come in?
And that's what happens. I think the enemies in that room do load in while you're in the other room, so the Gibdo has time to park itself right in front of that doorway.
And then, of course,
I believe that one was
Wallmaster
intentional,
in there,
yeah,
too.
for the refill.
Yeah. Wallmaster, of course, is just waiting on the other side of that door, and then Jet taking what we are assuming or figuring is an intentional death just to refill those hearts so you can take more.
Yeah, the best chance in this situation is, just get through the first room without damage and just damage boost the second room if you have to. Meanwhile, we do see P-Train heading over to Palace of Darkness, which is an interesting location. Tells us something valuable is over here, since I don't believe we've seen too many pod smalls here. As Jet picks up the item in Skull Woods, being the Titan's Mitts. That makes perfect sense. Picking up all of those world exploration items. Jet can now basically get almost anywhere.
We're going to see one of those here. It looks like we can only postulate that this is going to be the trip up the mountain. Lamp aside. Of course, you need the lamp this way to make it within logic.
But really, in a spoiler log, everything is within logic. And yeah, now we see P-Train went to Palace of Darkness to get that ever-important first sword.
Dude room hiding that first pokey there. Nice thing is when P-Train decides to make his way up the mountain, he'll have a little bit of sparks to help him.
Okay, so we have seen one Palace of Darkness small key. Uses that to open the front door, which opens up, a fair number of these checks here. 2 swords in Palace of Darkness. Yeah, Jet's still working with just the hammer. The hammer's a good weapon. It's no gold sword, but it does the job. I'm inclined to say that Jet has the lead right now. Just has a lead on those important items to get. We haven't really seen anything much in the way of clearable dungeon progress though, so we're still sort of waiting on that.
That's going to be another one of those little intricacies or differences with a spoiler pilot log seed here. You're going to see the runners grab a lot of the items that they can before ever clearing dungeons, and then, go moding as many dungeons as they can. Well, of course, going over that, Jet on the left-hand side of your screen, finding the mirror, while P-Train going for a mimic clip on the right-hand side.
Yeah, this is much less free than the camera unlock often used for this to get rid of these mimics here. P-Train gets it. It
goes.
takes a little while, but apparently whatever is over here is worth doing that rather than picking up a bottle or finding a bow somewhere. So
Can be one of those situations where it gets you access to another dungeon. And speak of the devil, that is an ice rod.
yeah, so now we see the main value of that dip was not immediate, but it's going to be important later. Just getting those swords. You want to get those 2 swords that are available, and you don't want to come back and have to do the get the ice rod and armor later. You could argue that if you're going that way, if there's nothing in the back of Pod, you could just grab those on your way to fight Helmasaur. When you come back with the bow anyway. But it being a pendant dungeon, then you're probably not going to be doing that. So got a little puzzle to put together. Okay, this is interesting. We see P-Train going for Aga, so that maybe means that there's something in Lumberjack Cave. Since at this point, 14 minutes to look over that spoiler log, you have to know that they're aware that Aga is not hard required.
The other thing, though, is that
boots, right? Yep, that's right. Key sanity.
Key sanity.
Apologies in advance. I might, reveal the fact that I don't play a whole lot of Key sanity yet.
Yep, you get 1 free check there on the Aga Tower climb in Key Sanity. After grabbing 1 key, you can get to both of the chests in Aga Tower.
And those boots are a nice one to pick up there. So interesting strategy here. Jet went for that early hook shot, whereas P-Train went straight for the boots. Jet's going for the boots now, I can only imagine. The hook shot will work in a pinch. It helps you go a little faster in a lot of situations, and Jet utilized that to get those mitts, get the bow, importantly, and get the mirror. In chat, I see somebody asked who's piloting P-Train. I believe, if I pull this up here, we've got P-Train is being piloted by Sabotender, and Jet is being piloted by Megawatt. Mr. at Megawatt himself.
There is 1 of the Ganon Tower small keys that we will need.
Really, if depending on the big key placement, it could be the only one we need.
Through Jet going back down. Not.
Yeah, it's interesting not getting these boots. Possibly some communication there. That's what that says to me. Oh, hold on. There's something else that you definitely want to get or something.
And you'll see that over on P-Train's side. I believe that Bombos medallion was sitting down there in the boomerang chest. That would be TR access.
Flute on Stumpy, cutting out the middleman there.
Are we gonna call that French vanilla?
I feel like that's stretching that term a little bit far, in my opinion.
I mean, it's the same area, just because.
I think the best French vanilla I've seen was I believe it was I think it was the shovel on first chest in Swamp Palace for the hook shot, or the small key on in Dig Game, or not Dig Game, the flute spot. That showed up once in a seed. So it was French vanilla Swamp Small.
That's just rude. Jet getting himself some footwear. I'll have both of our runners with the boots. And the speed of the sea will pick up quite a bit.
Okay, in a sense, it is really kind of unfortunate that that we can't get the audio that each runner has here, even though that would get rather confusing for a stream. But honestly, in these kind of races, the the real interest is in the communication between the two runners, how they're on the fly deciding, okay, what's the best route here? What's the best route here? Because you can't just look at it and pace the entire run out. You know, you sort of have to pick and choose, okay, like, how are we going to make this efficient here? How is that going to make it easier later? How are we making a good choice here? There's lots of micro decisions that go into these seeds.
Exactly. Like we mentioned earlier, unlike a normal spoiler log race, the pilots, or these runners, I should say, have a pilot behind them with the spoiler log, and the pilots got that spoiler log at the exact same time our runners hit go. So there was no 15 minutes prior combing through the log, planning out your route. It was, let's grab this and let's all go at the same time.
I honestly love that format. I feel like it's such a great celebration of one of the main things that we love so much about Rando is figuring out the seed. You know, a lot of the times when you're doing it alone, you're doing it just by what you pick up and where you find it. You have to suss out the logic that way. But this one, you have access to so much more information that you could reasonably parse in a short amount of time, and you have to see who's better at doing it.
We could almost make the argument that the real difficult part of this week is the piloting, as Jet picking up the fire rod there in the front of Thieves Town.
Yeah, I imagine P-Train is going to want to decide to route the front of Thieves Town into that Skull Woods area. We saw Jet go in there earlier for the mitts, but P-Train, having picked up those swords earlier, is going to be able to clear the dungeon. I guess keys permitting. I haven't been keeping track of that. My key logic knowledge is a little inadequate, but Jet hasn't gotten the sword yet, so even after picking up that fire rod, cannot actually access the boss chamber. So isn't going to be wrapping up that dungeon clear at the same time here.
An easy one to forget, Skull Woods, you need a sword to finish, not specifically for the boss, but for the curtains to get to the boss.
And a little piece of trivia, if you're ever playing a mystery seed, that's one of the tells that the seed is swordless. If you get early fire rod and you still haven't seen a sword, you can pop into the back of Skull Woods and see if the curtains are already pulled aside. If they are, then tough luck, buddy. You're not getting that sword.
Meanwhile, Jet picking up silvers off of our Smith friends today and grabbing a fairy with a bottle right south of that in the hammer pegs.
Yeah, it really seems like the Fendrana drifters over here are really planning on, we're getting our equipment in order as efficiently as possible, and then we just blitz all of the dungeons. That's, the main thing with, putting off that sword for so long. Not getting the sword is... having a sword is handy, but there aren't that many things it actually makes faster in terms of checks. So in a way, it makes sense if you're comfortable in your execution with just that hammer. If you can defend yourself with a hammer, you may as well put off that slightly inconvenient Palace of Darkness dip for those two swords.
Yeah, and I can imagine that Jet will be grabbing those swords about the same time he plans on clearing out Eastern Palace.
Yeah, at this point, that nothing else would really make sense at this point.
Keys, of course, depending. Or I might just be made to be a liar right after I say that.
Well, I would imagine Jet goes and grabs the one of the things I wish we had access to is the key counts for each of these runners. So that's almost impossible to keep track of just by watching. I don't know how many pod smalls Jet's picked up. We know that he's got at least one. I imagine, because otherwise there would be no reason to walk this direction. P-Train heading? Or, well, no, just opening up a Turtle Rock, of course. I guess that makes sense. Do it now, you don't have to do it later. No cane, so can't really proceed any further. But I imagine Jet's going to pick up those two swords, the mail, and the ice rod.
Right, Jet going for the first of 2 swords here in pod. Bouncer right, doesn't look like Jet has a small key yet, but still can get to the second sword.
And he's going to be able to get there a little bit quicker with those silver arrows already in hand. Won't have to do the mimic clip that we saw P-Train spend a slightly uncomfortable amount of time on.
Let's be fair though, mimic clip is something that is never that fast.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's still uncomfortable to watch any runner in a race stay in one spot for that amount of time. It's that's nothing you ever feel good about. It's like any moment I'm not moving is the moment my opponent is moving, you know. But given that P-Train decided to commit to that mimic clip, that tells me that there's almost certainly nothing else of value in the Palace of Darkness here. There would be no real reason to commit that much time to picking up the items that he did, unless there was no conceivable way that we're ever coming back here.
So for those of you keeping track there at home, that's a third required pendant dip. So oops, question mark, all dungeons.
Yeah, and that again, that's a lot of quick decision making for the pilots here. Is, you know, a lot of the time, you know, you can get laser visioned on those crystal dungeons. Okay, which crystal dungeons do we need to do? What do we need to clear them? And then only later do you find out, oh, these items are in these pendant dungeons, so we have to do, you know, some of or all of those too. It's nice to be able to identify that stuff as fast as you can.
And you can't, of course, forget the big monkey wrench in the plan. Remembering that it is, in fact, key sanity.
Yeah, some dungeons it doesn't matter much for. Others, it's very, very important. There are some dungeons where you can get around a lot of it. Misery Mire comes to mind. Keys are nice to have for certain item placements, but not really required for any of them.
Speaking of,
There's that Mire big key.
for our first viewer look at the Waterfall Ferry. While P-Train heading back into the Dark World, I can imagine this will be the good old Thieves Town, grab your fire rod and head back towards Skull Woods as Jet grabbed a tempered sword.
Yep, looks like nothing on Zora today. So interesting, Jet goes directly to Mire area after picking up Mire Small and the Mire Big. So I wonder if we're going to see the Cane of Samaria show up in this area.
You know, I've seen that happen way too much lately, more than it honestly should.
Yeah, especially given how the Cane of Samaria can be almost anywhere. You know, it's not one of those items that has a lot of conditions attached to where it is allowed to be placed. But I imagine it has to be here. We have to have a French vanilla or even possibly vanilla Cane of Samaria here. Otherwise, there would be very little point for Jet to be heading in here. Unless, of course, it's behind an item in here. Say, shovel.
Say, big key for Dungeon A to get big key for Dungeon B to come back here for this, for that. You know, it's key sanity. Who really knows?
Yeah, keys really throw a wrench into a lot of the logic.
Definitely a different way of thinking about things versus, you know, you normally would. Picking up a bottle with a red potion there, that is definitely going to come in very handy on a very low percentage clear here.
Ooh, unfortunately, it looks like cutscene chest is important. I mean, not unfortunately, but because at least the checks like this, where it's slow and you hope you don't have to do them in a regular seed, it's not as big of a deal in a spoiler setting because you know, if you have to do it, then your opponent also has to do it, so it's not exactly time lost.
Looks like P-Train's heading up towards the waterfall ferry to grab his bacon sword. Meanwhile, Jet on the left-hand side finding the Cane of Samaria in the big key chest.
You know, it's not a huge surprise. Again, as we said, it would be rather unusual to make the commitment to this dip that strongly. If the cane wasn't in here, it would take a very specific key layout or item layout to otherwise force such a dip.
This is legitimately already 100% one of those seeds where you're like, okay, I'm glad this is a spoiler seed. I'm really glad.
And already we're seeing the fruits of the Phendrana Drifters' labor over here. You know, getting in on that first dungeon clear. Looking at that inventory, there's not really anything that's missing. You know, we're missing the lamp, we're missing the boomerangs, we're missing the shovel, and the Book of Mudora. Other than that, that's a full inventory right there. You know, that's everything that you could want. Lamp's nice, but at this level, these runners don't exactly need it, per se.
It's what I like to call tournament or competition go mode. Like I said, lamp's nice, but I mean, do you really need it as long as you have that fire rod to light the required torches?
Yeah, it's definitely, if there are any newer players watching this, I would highly encourage you to do a little bit of practice on those dark rooms, because in a race setting, it feels really bad to feel like you gotta hunt for that lamp. The first seed will the first seed where you end up with a lamp for logical go mode will sort of break that feeling out of you. You know, you really don't want to have to look for that.
Oh, you mean a lamp in Mimic Cave situation?
Or lamp in Pendant Ice Palace.
And there it is on the left-hand side, 31 minutes, 12 seconds on in. Jet grabbing the first crystal of the evening for Phendrana Drifters.
Yeah, and again, that really shows the difference in these spoiler keys routings. That would be a relatively late first crystal pickup. That would be first crystal in a kind of slow seed, maybe. But again, you know, you just grab all the equipment and then you just go mode dungeons till the cows come home. Try to route in those small key pickups as best you can.
Speaking of lamp, P-Train picking that up in the bombable wall chest over there in Swamp Palace. Literally along the way, may as well spend the extra few moments to pick that up since you don't have to waste too much time. You know, one could argue it would, you know, the time you spend grabbing that lamp with where it was actually saves you the time fumbling around in the Mire Dark Room basement.
Yeah, unless you've got some of those harder dark rooms 100% in the bag, it's gonna save time to just grab it there. Especially if it's the first one, you know, you don't have to go through any of the other dark rooms ahead of time. Theoretically, you can do everything without the lamp that you can with the lamp. You know, it doesn't actually speed anything up, but it makes a lot of quicker clears of those rooms functionally impossible.
There you go. Yet another nice fight over there for Jet on the left-hand side, pulling out that fire rod, making quick work. Glenn Mullis, that is crystal number 2 for Jet and Phendrana Drifters, around 33 minutes on in.
A P-Train setting up for the diver down using the bomb setup, the cane not having been picked up yet.
You know, that cane is sitting inside of Misery Mire.
In the cutscene chest, no less. And now Jet going to the back of Kakariko Well, where we do find the swamp smaller.
So I would say, any guesses on where Jet might be headed off to next?
I would imagine here that we'd be likely to see a swamp ice palace clear at this point. After of course, you know,
Skull
popping
Woods.
up here and finishing off Skull Woods.
Psych! Yeah, this honestly makes sense. Do the Skull Woods play, mirror, and then
Never
go
have
ahead
to
and
come back
swoop
here again?
and knock up the other two.
We got to remember to mirror check Ped with the book we don't have. The book of Mudora is in the real world this time.
And not to be outdone, 34 minutes and 31 seconds on. And on the right-hand side, P-Train for Sphere Affinity picks up their first crystal of the evening. So at this point, we do know where all the items are. P-Train doesn't have that Sumaria, but of course knows where that's at, and we'll probably picking that up when they go inside to take care of Desert and Mire. Basically, at this point, we're just looking for keys now.
Yeah, honestly, I like Jet's routing here a little bit more than P-Train's. You know, you get that Cane of Samaria early, and that's sort of the rest that you need for a lot of stuff. P-Train can't even decide to dip ice, knowing that you're losing so much time if you do before you get the Cane of Samaria.
It looks like we're going to see P-Train following right behind Jet towards the Skull Woods. Which on the left-hand side, Jet taking down Mothula, 35 minutes, 47 seconds on in. That's crystal number 3. They're going to start coming hot and heavy and fast at this point. Alright, so Ice Palace, we theoretically don't need any keys here to finish. We can use a whole bunch of shenanigans to where we need to get to, depending on, of course, where items are, notwithstanding. And over to Swamp, we have the key, the one small key we need to clear Swamp. Being 2 more crystals here very shortly, actually. I believe also, if I'm looking right, we're still looking for the Eastern Big Key, the GT Big Key, and we do know where the TR Big Key is. Jet's gonna opt to grab this lamp, I should say, behind the bombable wall. As P-Train picking up the big key here inside of Skull Woods.
Yeah, this is at this point it's kind of a nice set of dungeons that we've got left. You know, we've got that quick Ice Palace with that you know, level 3 sword and the Cane of Samaria for a pretty quick clear. We have all of the items we absolutely need to find. So, you know, again, barring any keys that need to show up, you clear out Eastern Palace. You already went there for the one item that was required, and it was an item you can pick up relatively early, which is nice. And then Turtle Rock straight into GT, the nice 1-2 up there.
So I'm assuming we just had a little bit of a miscommunication there on P-Train's side. I just kind of noticed it. Went to the right, picked up the big key for Skull Woods, when we needed to actually go to the left side and grab that Quake medallion. And of course, since we didn't have any small keys then to let ourselves out of where we were, so we had to take the drop down to get there. That results in needing to S and Q to actually get back out of Skullwoods due to, like I said, where those keys were lock you in those three rooms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate mistake, and it's not a huge, major mistake that's costing you minutes and minutes, but it is the kind of mistake that you definitely can't afford to make in this kind of race.
Yeah, you can argue even more so than normal. It's like we keep saying, since this is spoiler log, since you do have a pilot behind you, any little mistake like that, it doesn't take that long, no, but it just doesn't feel good, and it takes long enough where you all of a sudden feel a lot more behind than you would have if you didn't have that little faux pas there.
Opening the wrong chest is a lot more of a problem if you know what the right chest is every time.
Exactly. And like I mentioned earlier, becoming fast over here. Jet on the left-hand side, grabbing crystal number 4. At about 39 minutes and 55 seconds on in. Okay, not gonna lie, that was a pretty slick Mothula fight there on P-Train's side, making quick work of it. And grabbing his second crystal, 40 minutes 23 on in.
Yeah, it's a deceptively tricky fight, since the direction in which you hit Mothula matters quite a bit, because if Mothula hits the spikes, then the damage is overwritten, and your attack deals 0 damage. So you have to both pay attention to which way the conveyor belt is moving you, which the angle you hit it at, to make sure you can, get it to stop its recoil right before it hits the spikes, and of course the patterns that you get from it.
Yeah, arguably, the hard part about the Mothula fight is not Mothula itself, but the room. Even further evidenced when you do boss shuffling to get Mothula in someplace like Eastern Palace, and it's like, oh, okay.
Conversely, if you get almost any other boss in Mothula's arena, it's a big head shake moment. Fighter Sword Argus, for example, in the back of Skullwoods is not a lot of fun.
Jet being the first of our runners here to dive into Ice Palace, hitting the switch, hopping off over to the right-hand side here. Show us off an Icebreaker. So we have a few things going down. Icebreaker in the left hand, a little bit short cutscene on the right hand side. Quick shout out and mention to be sure to follow both of these runners. Give them a little bit of love here on their Twitch channels. Watch them as they practice. Quite a good show here for you today. Quick action there with these silver arrows over on P-Train's side. Nice quick one cycle there, taking down Lan Nolis. That is crystal number 3. On the left-hand side, we just saw Jet pull the big key for Eastern Palace. So with that big key pull there on Jet's side, all we are left to find is the Ganon's Tower big key.
Yeah, no GT big key guessing game unless we want to pick a number from between 1 and 216 at the start of the race.
That would be kind of an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be picking up 216 items, that's for sure. It's going to be far, far less than that.
You would hope, at least. You would hope. Old Stair Puff's getting a little away from Jet out of the corner there, but a nice cleanup with the fire rod. Not too bad, quick work there. That is yet another crystal. That leaves 2 left for Jet and Phendrana Drifters.
Yeah, it's really going to be down to the thing to watch out for on Jet's side is trying to figure out when he's going to go for that GT big key. He knows where it is. He's just gotta. We just have to watch and see where he routes it in. Is he going straight to Eastern? Is he going to pick it up on the way? See how early we can try to guess where that big key is.
You know, the amount of times in Key Sanity Seeds I've seen the GT big key still sitting in GT. I mean, come on. That could still be a possibility here, too, since we haven't seen any of our runners pick it up yet.
That's a safe place to put it. I imagine, maybe it's on Hobo here.
No, that's just a Turtle Rock small. Yeah.
Oh, I suppose it could be in Turtle Rock, too. We have that left as well.
Alright, that is a Cane of Samaria for P-Train. Heading straight to the back now and taking down a Vitreous Fight. Train will be down to just looking for a few specific big keys as well. This is week 4 of the Linked Fest Randomizer League Spoiler Log Key Sanity. On top of that, these runners that you see on the screen have a pilot behind them with the log telling them where to go. Things are coming fast and things are going quick. Of course, the fun part about this spoiler log race, the pilots got the spoiler log at the same time our runners started. No prep time. Train must have had a little oops there, setting up the spooky action, going to bomb the wall and hit the switch instead. A little bit longer, but not long enough to really worry too much about. Jet making his way to the back of Eastern Palace here for a date with Armos Knights.
At this point, I feel like we're looking at the Phendrana Drifters with a relatively comfortable lead. Because again, in these spoiler log races, we can't look forward to any RNG bailouts, such as, you know, Ganon's Tower big key placement and routing. Everybody knows exactly where the items they need to pick up are. So it's really down to execution mistakes at this point. P-Train picking up the Meyer Crystal and is I think a full I guess 2 dungeons behind now as Jet finishes Eastern.
We get darn near simultaneous crystal grabs there. Only difference for Jet, that is crystal number 6. We're heading for that TR big key and up to TR next. And that was crystal number 4 over on P-Train's side. The P-Train might be opting for a quick grab of some green goo there.
Interesting to not go for the blue goo. Money isn't really the issue, but I would imagine that you go for the green goo since you know that's what you're going to need. You want to leave the possibility open to buy blue goo later if you're going to need it for the Ganon fight. So doing low percent Ganon is a lot more comfortable if you've got a bottle of blue goo in your pocket.
Yep, and of course, both of our runners as well have a fairy in a bottle that they picked up from Hammer Pegs. As Jet grabbing his Turtle Rock big key out of the front of Tower of Hera. Definitely one of those seeds that is more, one of those that you're just glad is a spoiler log race, given the fact that we've had to dip every pendant dungeon. And most, I guess, Interestingly, a forced double dip of Eastern Palace to get that hammer.
Yeah, things like that are definitely a lot more common in Key Sanity. With those keys, you know, if you can place those keys anywhere, then having to go into a dungeon just to get something else is a lot more likely than it is when all of the keys are in the dungeons, obviously. P-Train giving us a slightly different look at that icebreaker setup. Instead of using the full pause buffer, uses the sword buffers. It can be done unbuffered, sword buffers, pause buffers, however you like to do it. The important thing is that you get that one frame of movement. I wouldn't say it's a frame perfect trick, but it is a frame precise trick.
Single frame movements versus the 2-1-2-2-1 or whatever it is that Link normally moves at. I knew it at some point in time, but grabbing that Eastern Palace big key there out of Ice Palace, heading on down to Cold Stare. Jet making his way through Turtle Rock here. The way Jet is going, I would imagine either that GT big key is in the back of Turtle Rock here, or actually sitting inside of GT itself at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not picking up anything else in Turtle Rock here, you're not doing those extra chests in the front. Didn't pick up anything else on the way here. It's either in here or in GT, because I believe we have seen the other Dark Death Mountain checks.
Ooh, Cold Stare Pipe getting away from P-Train. Fortunately has that fairy. Probably not where he would have preferred to use it, but definitely glad has it there. Only had one.
I would say in this scenario though, that's Cold Stare is one of the remaining reasons in this seed that you have a fairy in a bottle. That is one of the bosses that can go wrong.
I would say it's a very fair assessment. After the fairy pickup, however, Cold Stare goes down for P-Train. That is crystal number 5, Eastern and not Tower of Hera, Turtle Rock remaining. Ooh, a very nicely placed full heart container there for Jet to add a little bit more to the health pool.
Yeah, bosses are a very interesting aspect of this game, in my opinion. There's a lot of variety, and once you get to a certain level, a lot of variety in, you know, how each boss sort of is. You know, like, I feel like, say, Mothula, that's kind of a more difficult fight because there's a lot of randomness in that fight. And it's a lot of quick, tight stuff that you have to react to quickly. Cold Stare isn't quite that difficult in that sense. There are a lot of ways in which that fight can go very, very well and very, very consistently. But depending on, you know, your equipment, if you're low on mail, you don't have a lot of hearts, it can go south like that just as quickly. So it can be one of those bosses, you know, even if you're pretty practiced at it, it can come out of nowhere and shock you with a death out of nowhere. And you're sitting there, you know, thinking, oh shoot, I've got to do Ice Palace again. Now, Trinex can also be that way a little bit, but I would not expect that at this point with the Tempered Sword and the level of practice that these runners are at. You're not going to expect to fall to Trinex more than once in every maybe 2 or 3 blue moons. And I feel like that's being generous. That's a very, very, very quick kill on that last phase of Trinex there.
Spin double, got the slash, got it to sit in that L formation. And for Jet, at about 52 minutes and 40 seconds on in, that is crystal number 7. We'll be dashing off to the left towards Ganon's Tower, I would imagine, here shortly. And at this point, I feel safe in saying that GT Big Key is actually hiding inside the GT. on the right-hand side, 53 minutes and 26 seconds on in. P-Train grabbing crystal number 6 off of Armos Knights. He has 1 crystal left to go before making his way over to Ganon's Tower as well.
So I'm gonna guess that the GT Big Key is going to be in chest 1.
It depends on how many small keys we have to go grab if there's any hiding in here for Ganon's Tower itself.
That's just a guess. I'm not saying it's foolproof guess. It's a guess.
I mean, right
side does seem to make that a little bit likely though, since there is that free small key after the compass room. Have to spend one to get here. You can get one on the way out.
Oh, look at that! Who would have guessed?
Yeah, if you guessed 1, you get free internet points.
So, I believe that is 54 minutes and about 32 seconds on in. We can now officially say Jet is in go mode.
Yeah, we've been in no mode for probably the last. I'll be generous and say maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah, fair point with that spoiler logs behind the scene.
But again, you know, with all of the conditions that you need to fulfill to be able to clear a game of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, that's a lot of information to parse, and that's sort of what these spoiler keys are all about. Here is who can deal with that amount of information the most efficiently. Because we haven't really seen too many mistakes in terms of, you know, raw execution making a huge difference. It's mostly a major routing divergence. We'd have to really go back and analyze to really know how much each of those two things came into play. But so far, very, very close, very well played here by Jet. Very potentially here looking at a sub-hour time, which is nothing to sneeze at.
And if we're being totally honest here, I mean, we got 9 hearts, we have blue mail, tempered sword, silvers. I mean, in all honesty, this is a pretty dang good loadout, even if it was a normal seed, not without the spoiler log. Jet clearing out the Wizros with some well-placed Samario blocks. One of those little things that would have been very nice to know about
P-Train
30 years ago. Uh-oh.
Oof, that's okay. I sort of take back what I said earlier about no major execution errors. That's a pretty big one.
I believe what we see there is an oops, I forgot to steal the key from the Pokey before the lava chat.
Yeah, that makes sense. There are a lot of a couple free keys in this dungeon that you get almost as a the Pokey. Yeah, the Pokey on the left side. Yeah. I've forgotten to grab the key from that first Pokey before.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, to kind of, you know, can throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in a seed kind of like this, where you got a spoiler log or a pilot behind you telling you everything. It's like, you know, they might have said, you know, okay, don't forget to grab this key, or this key is in this location, and you store that memory in the back of your mind, and you then later on think you grabbed it when actually you forgot.
Yeah, I feel like anybody who's played a decent amount of Rando has had that moment where they find something that they need on an item that they were 100% convinced they had checked. Or, in a situation where, you remind yourself as you enter a room to not forget to do something before you leave it, and you forget to do it before you leave.
Just a lot of information in a short amount of time. Especially in a seed like this. Jet on the left-hand side of your screen, onto his AGA 2 fight here. A little bit of egonometry before we make our last date with the big pig. What I assume would be a double there if it didn't eat the two hits. And P-Train has recovered, grabbed that key from the Pokey, and is making his way back down towards Trinex. Yeah, that'd be the next one right there. Forgetting to hit that switch again the second time going through. I mean, that I would assume is also a common one where you've been through here once. I hit the switch, then it's like, okay, I have to go back. I have to grab this. Oh yeah, that's right. I had to go hit that switch too. Oops.
Yeah, so Jet falling down into the Ganon fight shortly here. Not going to be getting that sub-hour time as I predicted. I'm notoriously bad at predicting how long the end game is going to take. And it's never consistent. Sometimes I'm generous, sometimes I'm not generous. But here we go. This is gonna be barring any major catastrophe here. Jet is gonna be finishing this seed out rather shortly.
Down to 2 hearts there, but did a nice 1-1. And the potion of the fairy. P-Train on the right-hand side here, going for a little bit of show points.
Yeah, I think the runners are allowed to watch each other's streams here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that oh, that's
so close.
That's a long hover. That is a long hover. It may not look like much, but that is a feat.
Just a hair short. Jet into phase 4 already. I believe has one last silver arrow hit left. If the torches would play nice.
Yeah, can't be too judicious here with the arrows, or with the torch lights. No half magic was picked up, but closes it out anyway, finishing just over an hour.
And there it is, sword in the air, fanfare playing, crossing the bridge. Get your GGs in chat. That is Jet coming across in first for Phendrana Drifter's official racetime.gg time of 1 hour, 1 minute, and 5 seconds.
And so we'll see here if P-Train decides to go ahead and finish off the seed. That looks rather stationary there at the entrance of Turtle Rock.
Yeah, then a quick glance over at Racetime GG shows that P-Train has hit the forfeit button. So get your GGs in chat as well for P-Train.
Yeah, honestly, a little closer than it was feeling like, and in the sort of in the end there, just a GT away. Finishing off the Trinex just a little bit behind the game clear from P-Train, or from Jet. Excuse me. So very, very good race on both sides, honestly. The spoiler does do a lot to increase that consistency, but in either case, GG's to the Phendrana Drifters, netting themselves another win on the board.
And speaking of Phendrana, of our GGs here, P-Train has joined us here in the chat. GGs, sir.
GGs.
So, Turtle Rock Small Key.
Yeah.
Was that just?
I was just in Goma. I was like, all right, yeah, we just go to the boss.
Yep.
And that's what I did.
Yeah, so
that's what I was thinking on that one there. You were thinking go mode, we got everything we need. Oh yeah, that's right. We needed to go steal a key. Never mind.
Yeah, so were you keeping an eye on the on your opponent's stream there?
The tracker was.
Okay, so I'm just curious to know, because that wasn't what cost you the race ultimately, which I guess is sort of the consolation prize there to that little oops moment.
Which moment?
You wouldn't you wouldn't have won the race had you remembered that small key.
Oh yeah, no, I knew I was already behind. Like yeah, when we Sabo was telling me they were in Turtle Rock when we were in Eastern, I was like, oh yeah, we're done.
So what was the big difference to see? Sorry, coming in late, making you repeat yourself.
Kind of hard to read, honestly. I'm for one, I haven't seen too many head-to-head spoiler log seeds, but to me it seemed like just a difference in the routing. You guys on the drifters seem to prioritize very heavily just collecting all those items, whereas P-Train went for those early 2 swords in the pod dip a little bit
yeah,
earlier.
I wanted boots as soon as possible.
I don't
Of course.
Actually, we used cape to get our boots. It sounds like you guys did the swords to get your boots.
Yes, because that was faster. Like the key and hype cave, I took that straight to pod. Got the ice rod, both swords. I mimic clip to get the ice rod. And then yeah, I remember some of our errors. There were a couple of mistakes we made. Number one
was one of them.
Yeah, Skullwoods. My first trip to Skullwoods, I knew the Myths was there, but I didn't know Quake was there. Also, the second time we went to Skullwoods, I misunderstood the different, like what the compass chest was, versus the map. So when we got that item, that was a save and quit. So I triple dipped Skullwoods.
We actually
that's
did the same thing in Hyrule Castle where we misread the chests. So as soon as I got the first chest, I opened the first chest and then mirrored, and I'm like, oh wait, that wasn't, what was it, Bombos or something in there?
It was a GT small
Bombos in the boomerang chest.
And Bombos in the boomerang chest, yeah. So what happened there was we were obviously going to get our boots and our Bombos medallion because we needed both of them, right? So I told Jet to start by grabbing his Bombos from the first chest in the front of Escape, which turned out to be not the first chest in the front of Escape, even though on the spoiler log, like the 3 chests in the front of Escape are all grouped together, and the first chest is the one in the middle, the second chest is the one on top. So I looked at the chest on top of those 3 in a row, and I was like, okay, grab the first chest in Escape, mirror out, go grab your boots. It was it was a bit of a...
I did that, and I'm like, wait, you wanted me just to get this? Was it a GT small key? I'm like, you wanted me just to do this? He's like, where's your bomb? And then he's like, where is Bombos? I'm like, I'll have to go back. Before boots.
Yeah, you guys made up for the lack of boots a lot with that early hook shot that you picked up. Use that to cover ground a little bit faster, which I thought was a pretty nice strategy to take note of.
Yeah, we had a couple of other issues. There was a small miscommunication on the bottle in Spec Rock Cave. I knew the Thieves Town Big Key was on Sick Kid, but Sabo eventually told me
we did not need.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, we don't need that." I missed that part, so I actually save and quit straight out of Hera and was like, "Oh crap, I forgot my bottle. Let me go back up to Death Mountain." So I literally climbed and was ready to drop in Spec Rock Cave, and I was like, "Wait a minute, we don't need this."
Yep.
I made that same mistake for a while too, thinking we needed it.
The brewery Turtle Rock Small Key was something we skipped the first trip. I went straight for flippers, so I had to make a trip back. I ended up picking up the small key in the brewery, and then the fairy in the bottle in Hammer Pegs.
Little things like that definitely kind of ate away at the time. It made it a little bit more inefficient for sure. I can see how you guys just kind of pulled ahead in that respect for sure.
I also had a silly back and forth for the hook shot, right? So I had the powder, and my idea was, all right, let me go pick up the flute, and then I'll go activate the flute and get the hook shot, right? So I got tunnel vision. I activated the flute, and I started heading to Skull Woods. And I was like, oh, crap. I forgot to go get Magic Bat. So I back out of the Skull Woods screen, the portal and stuff. Start dashing to Magic Bat, and I realized, wait a minute, I don't have magic. And then I start panicking. I'm like, where can I get magic? I was like, oh, I can literally get it on the way to Skull Woods. So I could just bonk on the tree. So that was kind of a funny little back and forth that lost us a few seconds, but
yeah, it's a little bit too bad that the King of Samaria was French vanilla at that point. Otherwise, you could have done the fake powder because you picked up the mushroom.
Yeah, right. That would have taken care of that for sure. Ah, well.
Yeah, we were kind of laughing at the seed. It was like, oh, thank goodness for spoiler logs, right?
Mm-hmm.
This would have been a nightmare to run with, to run blind, you know.
To have
Yeah,
to deal with the seed.
Kind of gross, yeah.
Because I 100% would have put off Pod, and that kind of had the keys to the kingdom in terms of swords.
Everything in the front is very unusual.
Yeah, it ended up working out really nicely in Pod.
Yeah, also, I feel like
the
this...
pendant dungeon dips were too deep.
As far as spoiler log key sanity seeds go, I felt like this was a really good one. Pendant Thieves, Pendant Hera, Pendant Pod especially. I felt like none of the keys were really that difficult to get to. Routing, anytime you have Crystal Pod, it's just a nightmare. Trying to figure out, where are the 6 keys, and then which 5 do you want? Assuming, you need to full clear Pod, which is another puzzle you have to solve.
So many layers.
Yeah, the key sanity definitely adds another huge layer to the spoiler log part of it, though. You don't just have to keep track of those items that you need, it's a pretty easy task to keep in your mind, which things you need for which checks. But the key that's just a whole nother layer of just adds potential mistakes to make.
Oh, I did have a question. I had a question for Jet and Megawatt. So did you guys do Desert and Mire before Swamp?
Yeah.
Why?
We did. Because
Lamp was in the first chest of Swamp.
Yeah, I wasn't honestly paying that close attention to where the lamp was at the time. I knew we had a fire source. I wasn't super heavily prioritizing looking for the lamp. So
I just do whatever Megawatt tells me.
Yeah. So I just basically hadn't found the lamp at that point because it wasn't the high priority on my list. And the Cane of Samaria in Mire was. So I was like, okay, we have a fire source, we have silver arrows, we have swords, we have everything to make the Mire dip just really nice, the simple full clear single dip.
That worked out too.
Let's go to Mire and do desert because we also have the desert big key. So
we were able to go right into ice after Swamp too because we had the cane and could just do Icebreaker. So I think it worked out pretty well that route.
Yeah, that did work out for you guys. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was also the first dungeon clear that we had on stream here. It was I think it was like 35 minutes or something. Misery on our first clear.
Without the lamp.
Crazy.
Yeah, it took us a while to get down there. I ping-ponged around a little bit. I wanted to do Swamp first for my arrow situation. Completely forgetting, until Sabo reminded me that Desert actually has a ton of arrows in it. But I did Swamp, then I went to Skull. Then I think I finally made the play for Mire, and then did Ice.
The Mire Desert thing kept shuffling down the list of things we wanted to do. I found it was like, okay, well, let's do Skull Woods instead. Okay, let's go to do Swamp Palace instead. Yeah, so it definitely was funny.
Yeah, there were also a couple of funny moments. We were trying to figure out where things were, right? And I just have a habit. Anytime Sabo hasn't told me explicitly, you can skip the rest of this, it's junk, I tend to open up the chests that I can get my hands on. Like Hype Cave, he's like, oh yeah, pod keys in the first chest. I went ahead and opened up all the chests, right? So I go into Mini Moldorm, he's like, oh, you only need the far right chest. I've always had issues with left from right, just since I was a kid. I open up the left chest first and I find the mushroom. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I open up the right chest and I find the powder. I was like, hey, do I need the mushroom? Because mushroom was in Mini Moldorm. He's like, it was?
What?
And then I'm on the Bowlock side of Pod waiting for my bomb to blow up. And then I just open up the compass chest just for kicks. And I find blue mail. And I was like, oh, blue mail's here.
Yeah.
So just a lot of funny moments like that.
A few of those good old happy accidents.
That's right.
Happy
no kidding.
Accidents. So
yeah, it was a fun
forward,
scene,
looking forward, it looks like both of you guys on these two teams, you switch tomorrow at noon.
That's right.
Runners
Oh,
and
yeah.
pilots.
Very hype. It's going to be exciting.
Looking forward to my showdown with you, Sabo. It's gonna be a
Oh
blast.
man, jeez, just don't stomp me too hard, dude.
Dude, I'm gonna be reading so hard. You don't even
man.
know.
I can't wait. Just yell
Get those
stuff
Sounds
at
like
me.
reading
you
glasses on.
got some fierce competition then, Jet.
I would like to say good luck to Megawatt. He's gonna need it based on my routing ability.
Oh, no.
Right. We'll have fun.
Dude,
then.
reading the spoiler log, it's a completely different world. You wouldn't think it would be that hard,
Right.
but
Oh, I
juggling
definitely would.
everything, it's so tough. Sabo, in case I didn't say it, I know I made lots of jokes of our mishaps, but Sabo was a fantastic pilot.
I did my best for you.
One
Right
could
on.
almost argue that piloting might be a little more difficult when it comes to these seeds this week.
Oh, hands down.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the execution pressure, but in terms of saving time, the heavy lifting is on the router.
Mm-hmm.
Got somebody barking in your ear. Where do I go? What do I do? What's my next move? Tell me now! That being said, any of you have any other words you want to say? Looking forward to Saturday's match at all? Any other gloves coming off, knocking down smack talk you want to get out of the way?
Nah. They know what's up.
Yeah, I'm already scared for my life as it is. Don't need to be scared anymore.
Dude, we better win one of these. We're gonna have to ask Fear for some extra credit or something.
So, yeah.
We're having a rough go this season.
Right on.
Oh, to be fair, there isn't anything as a gimme though in the Invitational this league. It's stacked top to bottom, hands down.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, speaking of the Invitational, we do have a couple of other matches that are coming up tonight. Even this is a pretty packed weekend, actually. We've got matches going on all across the board. Honestly, we've got one going on, I think, right now. Already on SpeedGaming 2, SpeedGaming 3, SpeedGaming 4. Just check all over the place. There's a whole mess of matches going on. It would take far too long to list them all individually, but unless we have anything else to say here, I think that's going to do it for us.
Yep, like Esmar said, check out all the SpeedGaming channels. We got them loaded. We also have the ALTTPR League channels loaded. I believe we actually have matches on all 4 of those channels going on tonight. Tomorrow, if you're interested in for the rematch, the runners and pilots of tonight's matchup between Quindrana Drifters and Spherefinity swap sides. Pilots become the runners become the pilots. That's going to be an interesting one to keep your eye on. Tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Huge shout out to all the runners for putting on a good show for us today. Go ahead and be sure to give them a follow on their Twitch channels. Show them all the support and love that you possibly can. And a huge shout out to all the behind the scenes work here, especially our tracker, SaberUX, keeping us on task, showing us what we got, doing the hard work on our end behind the scenes, definitely making our job a lot easier. For that, we'll sign off. We'll catch you next time on here on SpeedGaming for some more Link to the Past Randomizer. Have a good one, everybody.